Hi, it's Rob from OnlineVideoSolutions and welcome to the Sony PXW-X70 review. I wanted to do a review here of what I consider the pros and cons of this particular camera. There's been a number of good reviews on the internet that have gone through the features, etc. of this camera and showed some of the footage. But what I thought I'd do here is go through, having used it now for a month, what I consider the pros of this camera as well as some of the cons, some of the little things that I didn't see in other reviews that I found out through using it, through testing, etc., that may be of use to you. So that's what I'm going to go through now. I hope it's useful. We'll start with the pros and take notes. Let me know what you think. I look forward to feedback. So the first pro is obviously the 1-inch back illuminated sensor. The video courtesy of Sony here. We can see the massive sensor compared to the 2/3 and 1/3 inch, which is typical in broadcast cameras or even small handhelds. Granted, the high-end broadcast cameras have 3 of the sensors for red, green and blue, but if you have a single sensor camera, then a 1-inch sensor is fairly large compared to the standard 2 and 1/3 sensors. It has low noise grain at higher gain levels, again thanks to the large sensor. If we look here, this is just done indoors in my home, pointed at my dog at 0 dB gain, and I'm just going to increase this now in 3 dB increments. Notice obviously the darker areas behind the dog. You'll be able to see the grain as we gently increase the gain over the 3 dB increments. And what I've found is obviously because of the bigger sensor, the grain itself is much finer. And I tend to use the Neat Denoiser for Final Cut Pro 10, and that works fairly well. As long as you have a surface that you can get the Neat program to work on, then it'll denoise fairly well. The one thing I have found with that, just as an aside, is that the denoising program, once you've run that, to export takes a hell of a long time. So there you can see 33 dB, obviously very high. One would never use that except in an emergency. And now we'll just gently roll all the way back from 33 all the way back down to 0. So at least you get a small idea of what the gain looks like, certainly the noise at the various gain levels. This camera is also 4K ready, as you may well know. It's a paid upgrade in early 2015, and obviously 4K is the future, so it's very nice that this camera already has that. And of course, with a 1-inch sensor of 20 million pixels, 4K will be an easy upgrade once the firmware comes out. Another big pro for me, is the HD-SDI output port. On a camera of this size, the only other one that I've seen was the Canon XA25. Which I've had previously, so this camera compares to the Canon XA25 a lot better in my opinion, but one of the few cameras at this size with an SDI port. So if you have a long cable run, then this camera is ideal, particularly if you're using it in studios, etc. It has 6 assignable shortcut buttons. Again, for a camera of this size, that's pretty outstanding. If we go into the menu here, I will show you some of the options that you have that you can assign to the button. So there you can see it's already been set, but obviously you can change any one of these as you wish. There we go through, and I'll just scroll through here, and you can see it's for a camera of this size, a fairly extensive option that you can assign to one of the 6 assigned buttons. So really impressed with the number of options that you can assign. It also has a 3-stage optical ND filter. So again, courtesy of Sony, the video here, you can see at the back there, you can obviously change the ND filters, and that works significantly well in bright light. I just wanted to do a quick one here in the studio. As you can see, there you can see the ND marking or indication on the LCD itself, and obviously it goes from quarter to whatever it was, a 16th and a 64th. So very, very useful optical filters. Again, the Canon XA25 did not have this, so very useful in bright light. The 50 megabit XAVC 422 10-bit codec at 50 and 60p is remarkable for a camera of this size. And the quality of this codec, as Alistair Chapman and others have pointed out, is really good. Putting this up against a ProRes recording, very difficult to see the difference unless you pixel peep at hundreds of percent zoomed in. Here you can see the recording format options under XAVC in the PAL location, which is obviously where I am. So all the way from 50p down to 720p 50p. I typically use 1080 25p. It's PAL and NTSC switchable, and it uses a very unusual 60i 50i select in the menu, which obviously makes it a world camera. So if we go into the others menu here, you can see we'll just scroll up here and we'll get to the option where there it is, 60i 50i select, and if you change that, obviously it'll go from PAL to NTSC. I'm not sure why they use those particular naming convention, but there you go. It has simultaneous relay and backup recording modes. Yes, other cameras have that, but again, it's a pro for me, particularly if we go into the menu here, you can see the options, the relay recording. That's the big one for me. We shoot up to 8 hours in a day of video, and so we want to be able to, for it to fall over from one card to the other very easily, and of course this does that perfectly. The AC power is not obscured by the battery. Small thing, but for me, here's the picture. You've obviously got the battery inserted. That's where the AC power goes in. As a comparison, I was looking in the manual recently. The Sony X200 requires the battery to be removed in order for the power cable to be inserted into the battery location. I have no idea why Sony would do that. It seems absurd. This camera doesn't require that. It's got separate buttons for focus, iris, gain, shutter, and white balance, which again on a camera of this size is pretty remarkable. There you can see just above that wheel is the AF/MF button. That's the autofocus, manual focus. And here we can see the iris, gain, shutter, and white balance, among other buttons. So 5 of the most important buttons for manual settings on a camera are available at a button press, which is great for a camera of this size. It's got a smooth zoom lever. Again, not many cameras have got a zoom level of this size and this smoothness, so you can really do great variable zooms with this lever. It compares very well to the Canon XA25. The 24 times clear zoom is almost as good as the 12 times optical zoom. So here you can see a demonstration from Sony of the 12 times optical. If you go all the way in, you can go to the 24 times clear. And if you really need to punch in a long way, obviously you'll lose significant amount of detail, but you can use the digital extender as well. So very useful, and essentially the clear view zoom is a crop of the 1-inch sensor, so the quality remains almost identical. The MI shoe adapter, the multi-interface shoe adapter, allows for wire-free mic receivers. So if we have a look at the video here from Sony, you can see the MI shoe. If you remove the handle, the shoe itself allows you to, with this SMAD P3 adapter, allows you to add the Sony UWP-D series receiver on there. And not only does the power, not only does the sound come straight through the shoe, but the power as well. So you don't need to put in batteries. In fact, it'll power the receiver as well. So really nice feature to have on a camera of this size. It's got dual SDXC slots. Yes, many other cameras have got it, but it's definitely a big pro for us because we shoot, as I say, a lot of footage over an entire day, and so we need up to 8 hours of recording, which we get easily with the relay recording. At AVC 50 megabits, 1080p 25, 128 gig cards give us 288 minutes per card, so multiply that by 2, that's well over 8 hours. It's also got a dual 4 times and 8 times focus magnifier option, and that's also in auto or in manual. And so here we go, you can see it as you punch in. That's a 4 times, which you can see there, focus magnifier. And the great thing about this is that you can move it around on the screen or use the little manual sort of the jog dial button, if you like, on the back. And the great thing here is, as you see, we'll punch out, but it remembers now when I punch back in the position that the focus magnifier was in. Some of the other cameras I've used, the focus magnifier always goes back to the center of the screen, and then you've got to move it around with, something. Here it'll remember it, and you can obviously use your finger either on that little rectangle on the right to move around quickly, or to fine-tune it, putting your finger in the middle of the screen. You can then gently move the focus magnifier around, especially if you want to focus on eyes. The X70 remembers the manual settings when switched back from auto mode. So here you can see the manual settings. We've set everything manually, white balanced, etc. We'll kick over to auto. You can see the awful white balance that kicks in with auto, and all the function along the bottom, iris, gain, and shutter all set to A's. And if we punch back again to manual, you'll see now that everything is retained. So really useful in a run and gun situation. If you have to hit over to to auto, when you go back to manual, all your settings are retained. It's got a parfocal lens which includes the clear view zoom, so here you can see the lens is correctly set with a focus, and obviously parfocal just means that it retains the focus, particularly at the telephoto end of the zoom, when you zoom out and back in. Most DSLR lenses do not do this, so if you set focus and you zoom out and you zoom back in, you have to refocus. With this little camera, it has a parfocal lens, so if we snap focus or snap zoom back in again, unfortunately it was a bit of a windy day, but there you can see the focus has been retained when I've zoomed back in again. So very useful to have a parfocal lens on a camera of this size. It's got a high quality LCD screen. Now I compare this to the Panasonic GH4 as well as the Canon XA25, and I have to say this screen is really excellent. It's got good color reproduction. You'll be very happy with the quality of the pictures on this screen, and I think it's a 940 by 560, so a very high resolution LCD screen. It has a night mode which works in complete darkness. Here's a demonstration of my daughter asleep. Her room is completely dark. That's shot on the X70, and as a comparison I have what I use is actually my baby cam, the Panasonic W850, which is obviously not quite as good, but you can now see a comparison. There's the night shot with the X70 versus the W850. Obviously significantly better with the X70, as one would assume with such a big sensor. It has wireless control and viewing from the smartphone app, as many of the new cameras do. So if we go into the menu and we set wireless, here you can see the options. You then go and set that on your smartphone, and as you connect here, you can go in and actually monitor some settings. There's not a lot of settings you can do here on the X70, but at least you have wireless control with a monitoring option, and this is obviously straight from the camera to the smartphone. This does not connect to outside wireless options, so it'll only go from the camera straight to the smartphone. But there you can control iris with a little slider on the right as you move your finger up and down. You've got the focus option as well, and on the right hand side you've got the zoom. You can obviously start and stop the recordings, and you can use the little lock button on the bottom left hand corner there to lock it so that you don't accidentally change something while you are recording, for example. It's got a big, comfortable, useful eye cup and eye sensor. So if you look at the pictures here, that eye cup is very big. I have glasses and it's very comfortable and easy and works great in outdoor situations, so very useful to have an eye cup of that size. And there you can see the sensor that as you move your eye generally, but I'm using my finger now, the LCD will shut off and the EVF will come on. So very, very useful to save a little bit of battery if you're outdoors using the EVF. It has in-depth, for this size camera, picture profile settings. So if we go in here, if you want, or somebody who wants to go and change the color settings within the X70, you have a wealth of options for a camera of this size. 6 picture profiles that are all factory set with Cinematone 1, Cinematone 2, stills, Rec 709, etc. But you can go in and tweak these as people have on the forums. If you go onto some of the forums, I'll link below, you'll find some great settings there. But you can see a fair amount of color settings and color changes that you can make using these picture profiles. And of course you can copy the profile from one profile to another. So we were on profile 6 there. I can choose to copy those entire settings to any one of the other 5 picture profiles. I can then modify it and check the difference between the two. So very useful to be able to copy it. And you have a reset button which will obviously reset that particular picture profile back to its original factory default settings. You can save the complete camera profile to SD card. This isn't new, but again it's a great feature, particularly if you have more than one of these cameras. You can go into the menu here, the camera profile option, and you can copy that profile to your memory card A or B, take it to another X70, should I say, restore the settings, and then you have identical settings in more than one camera. So very useful for somebody that owns more than one of these. It's got a really excellent active steady shot mode. If we have a look here, I'm walking behind my wife on uneven ground and on a field, and you can see I've got active mode engaged here, and it definitely keeps the image very still, or certainly, you know, without too much movement. I'm pretty happy with using this in a pinch. It's got a useful spot focus mode, which is assignable to a button. If you look at the back of my wife's jacket there, we'll touch on the screen itself, on the LCD screen, and it'll bring the tree into focus. And again, if I touch on my wife's jacket at the back there on the screen, it'll gently bring the back of the jacket into focus. So again, useful. May not be a replacement if you want to do, you know, a manual focusing, but in a pinch you could use this on the screen itself. It's got HDMI timecode out and SDI and HDMI output record control option for external recorders. So if we go into the menu here, you'll be able to see this quite easily. If we go down to video out, we'll see here that the HDMI TC output is on off, which obviously pretty standard, and the SDI and HDMI record control can obviously be set on and off as well. I can confirm that I've just received the Atomos Shogun, and the HDMI control definitely does work. I was able to get that to work. I didn't get the SDI control, record control to work, so when I press the record button on the camera, it would start recording on the Shogun when set in HDMI mode. When I connected to SDI, I just couldn't get that Shogun to actually start at the same time. It has an assignable headphone volume control button. Again, just a small thing for me, but very useful to be able to assign one of the 6 buttons to headphone volume. Oftentimes I'm out in the field or I'm in a location with headphones on and I want to be able to change the headphone volume while I am either recording or while something's happening, and I want to be able to do that quickly and easily. So if we go down here, you can see the volume control. If we now go out and hit that assign button and use the menu little wheel on the front of the camera, you can then control the volume coming into your headphones, which again, very useful for me particularly. It's got a live lip sync output option timing control. If we go into the menu here, I find this very, very useful. Under audio output timing, you've got live, which will obviously have the audio. You'll be able to hear it as quickly as you can hear it externally. But if you use lip sync, it'll delay the audio by a few frames, particularly useful according to the manual when you're outputting via HDMI, so you get a synced audio and video output via HDMI. I know for a fact that the Canon X825, we had trouble with this, where we'd record with the Canon X825 and the audio was slightly ahead, 1 or 2 frames ahead of the video. So obviously this solves it on the X70. It's got a second cold shoe adapter that's included in the pack. Again, just a small thing, but there you can see the one on top of the handle on the left-hand side. You get the one on the right-hand side in the pack. I remember when I got my EX1R, I had to go and find one of these. They were like 20 odd pounds more. So very nice that the second cold shoe, which I actually do use a fair amount, is included in the pack. Just a small thing. Finally, we have the time date stamp for legal depositions. If you were wanting this camera for a legal deposition, yes, you can use it. It's in interlaced mode only. So if we go down here, you'll be able to see under the others option, if we go all the way down here to the data rec option, you can see at the moment it's grayed out, which means obviously you can't make any changes. In order to change the setting, we actually need to go all the way out back to the record option. So if we go all the way up here to our record menu, we go in and we change the record format to 1080i, 50i, 50 megabits, then and that executes. If we can now go back into the menu, we'll see that we can now go down to the others option, and that data record is now set to on, and at the bottom of the screen there you can see the date and time. And if I turn off the LCD overlay, you can see it a little bit more clearly. We just change it, and that actually does get recorded onto the video itself. So this camera can be used for legal depositions, but only in interlaced mode. So let's move on to the cons. Like anything, no camera is perfect, and here are some of the cons that I found for my personal use. I'd love to get your thoughts on the camera as well. The first thing for me is that it does not output from HDMI and SDI simultaneously. Now it's wonderful that it's got both of these output options, but the Canon X825 had that option. So if we go into the menus here, you can see when you choose output, you have to choose one of the 3 options. You cannot have an option for both. Hopefully Sony, if you watch this video, please give us an option for both. Even the direct competitor, the X825 from Canon, has an option to output both from SDI and HDMI at the same time. There's no on-camera audio control when using the SMAD-P3 adapter. So if we go into the audio option here, you'll see it's grayed out. Now the SMAD-P3 is that little adapter shoe that fits onto the MI shoe that you then you put the Sony UWP-D series wireless kit into, and essentially that just then allows you to have a wireless receiver on the camera itself. But this is, I don't know whether this is a bug or whether this can be firmware changed. I'm in communication with Sony at the moment, but the fact that you cannot change the record levels, input levels into the camera using the MI shoe adapter is problematic for me. There's quite a high noise floor when using the SMAD-P3 adapter, and I want you to listen in now. Here's the difference between using the 3.5mm jack and the SMAD-P3 adapter with the same Sony wireless receiver. So there you go, you can hear the noticeable difference. As I say, I'm in communication with Sony to see if there's a fix for this, but that noise floor using the MI shoe adapter isn't acceptable for me. There's no proper wired remote control unit. It needs various bits, as I would say, in order to use a wired remote control. Here you can see one of them. It's a Vivitar that I initially purchased with this unit, and if we have a look here, you'll see as we scroll around to the front of this that in fact there you can see there's 3 cables that are required because it doesn't have a 2.5mm input jack. It has a USB multi-interface input, and so traditional remote controls like this one require 3 cables, and this is the current one we use, which is the Manfrotto panhandle remote, which does work very well with the X70, but there you can see you require 3 cables in order to get this to work. I'm not sure why Sony did that. It's got a very slow lens at f2.8 to f4, and the drop-off is fairly quick. Notice here how quickly it drops off. At less than 10% it starts to drop off from 2.8, and as we zoom up here a little over 20%, you can see at 3.4. And as we continue to zoom up here to just over 40%, 3.7, and then it zooms up to around 70% here, and then it hits f4. And it does retain f4 all the way through to the far end of the clear view zoom, as you'll see at the top there. The manual does say 4.5. Maybe they have improved it, or it was a mistake in the manual, but it does retain f4. But the lens itself is fairly slow. The manual gain adjustments are in 3 dB increments only, and again, for me, this is a bit of a con. If we watch here, this is not ideal. Sony, if you're watching, why can't you make it in 1 dB increments? Because you can see here 3 dB is a fairly noticeable change, and it is sometimes useful to be able to move in 1 dB increments. So this is not ideal. I wish they could have made this 1 dB. I wonder whether a firmware update would allow them to change this to 1 dB increments. So this is definitely not ideal on a camera even of this size. Got fairly awkward to reach menu rocker joystick here, even in handheld mode. There we can see I'm holding it. That's the standard way you'd hold it if you were hand holding it, and you can see the little joystick there, and there we go. You've got to move your thumb over, and it may not seem like a long way to move, but if you're using this camera a fair amount and you do need to go into the menus on regular intervals, that's not the ideal position for the rocker. I wish they could have maybe swapped that around, maybe with the HDMI port, swapping the HDMI and rocker port around. It's also got an awkward to reach menu select button, so it's underneath the LCD there with the word menu. Again, doesn't seem like much, but as you're using it, you've got to kind of fiddle to get around to the side there to, hit the menu button. It would have been nice if that button was further back so that it's easier to reach, thinking about an operator behind the camera itself. There's no synchro scan option. It does do the 50 and 60 and 100 and 120 shutter speed, but unfortunately no synchro option. So there you can see 50. We can obviously go and change that to 60, 100 or 120 if you're running in 50 and 60p mode recording. But if you are pointed at a computer screen or something like that, even whether you set it to 50 or 60, you may still get those lines coming across the screen because there's no synchro scan option, which is obviously a higher end feature. Would have been nice to have on a camera though of this size as well. the face tracking mode automatically smooths subject's features. Now this I only picked up by accident. If you watch, I'm not sure whether you'll see it. Here's a picture of my forehead. Look at my forehead. This is without face tracking. And now this is with face tracking. I don't know whether you'll see it on the video, but it is noticeably smoother. So it does in-camera smoothing when you use face tracking. I have no idea why they would do that. That is definitely not useful. If you want to do it, we can always do it in post as video producers. So just be aware of using face tracking. It will smooth the skin to some degree. The marker needs to be set to off mode to show the full display output. Overlays are set only when using all output. So that's a fairly hefty thing. Let me show you what that means. So when we go into markers here and we set markers to on, and we go out of here, you can see there's no markers on the screen. I'm now showing the external recording. This is not the LCD, this is what you get on the external. In order to actually get the markers to display on screen, if you were, for example, doing some kind of tutorial video, but like this, you've actually got to switch that off. So there you actually see the markers come back on screen. So it's very unusual to have to set the markers, which is like normally the cross and the 4:3 aspect ratio markers. You've got to set that to off in order to see the full LCD output display with all the functions on the screen. So I'm not sure why that's the case. It's got awful thick overlay markers as well with the center aspect and guide frame. Have a look at this. Maybe I'm just used to far better, finer markers, but if we set the markers to on here and we go and set each of them, the center marker as well as aspect ratio to on, then you'll see here, as far as I can see anyway, and the guide frame might as well set that to on as well. And we go out of the menu, you'll be able to see here what they look like. And there's a screenshot or a recording of the LCD menu. These very thick markers which really are intrusive on a wonderful little LCD like this. I wonder why they didn't make it a single line rather than these very thick. It looks very amateurish. I'm not happy with the markers at all. I just don't use them. The XA70 has a counterintuitive 2-channel select option on the XLR handle. So if we're looking at the XLR handle, on the left-hand side there, you can see where it says RIC CH Select. When the button is down on the channel 1 option there, you're actually getting the audio sent to channel 1. So the first XLR input goes to channel 1 and the second XLR input goes to channel 2. When you push the button up, channel 1 audio gets sent to channel 2. My way of thinking is if you had the button set up to the top option, you'd have channel 1 coming on channel 1 and channel 2 coming on channel 2. So you'd have the discrete audios coming in. But no, it's the other way around. With it down on channel 1, that means that it goes just to channel 1 and channel 2 gets its own audio. So it's almost like it's back to front. I don't know whether that's an error or a bug or whether that needs to be changed in firmware, but that's definitely counterintuitive as far as I can see. It doesn't have a great lens hood and cap, so just a comparison, there's the X70 on the left and the Sony XA25 on the right. An absolutely brilliant little lens cap combination hood with the XA25. I wish the actual sizes of the lenses on the inside, the diameters were the same, because I'd go and buy a Sony XA25. That little hood and the separate cap on the X70 isn't ideal and easy to get lost, to fall down, etc. Whereas the all-in-one solution that Canon offers, in my opinion, is way better. I wish Sony would produce one. I would buy it, even if it costs like 30 or 40 pounds. So that's it. Here, if you want to go, is the link to the specifications on the X70. I hope this has been useful for you. I just wanted to go through some of the features that I've found. And here are some links to some of the groups that I'm in and that you can go and get more information. So if you're interested in the Sony, particularly on picture profiles, etc., then these options here, if you join the Facebook group or follow those forum settings, go to those forums, you'll find more information on the X70. So I hope that's useful.